So of course, a lot of us out there get fragrances and we wear fragrances for ourselves. We're not necessarily trying to please other people. We're not trying to impress others. A lot of us do it so that we can get complimented, right? And of course, a compliment will always lift our spirits. If somebody says, oh, that's a really nice looking tattoo, or I really like your watch, or I really like your haircut, or whatever the case may be, you know, it's a nice thing to say to somebody, especially if they're going through something, and it always brightens their mood and it exalts their spirits. How to get more compliments with your fragrances. I'm going to be sharing you what my experiences have been, so make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin today's episode and I give you my quick thoughts on how to get more compliments with your fragrance, what are some of the things that you can do right now to get compliments with them? I want to start the video off first by saying that if you're a fan of fragrance-related content and if you love smelling your best, hit subscribe, hit the bell icon, and also give this video a thumbs up for the algorithm. It would really mean a lot to me. So, how to get more compliments with your fragrances if you are in fact looking to get more compliments, right? The first thing that you must understand is that it's highly subjective and personal and idiosyncratic. So just because you enjoy a particular fragrance and you're inclined or you feel compelled to compliment somebody when they're wearing it doesn't necessarily mean that the next person is going to have that same penchant or that same affinity for the same fragrance. So for example, let's take a really popular niche fragrance that everybody compliments and it seems to be super successful. Usually it's those fragrances that have that polarity. It's those fragrances where the polarization will easily divide people. Some people are like, no, it smells amazing, it's great, it always gets me compliments. And then other people say, oh, it's disgusting, I can't stand it, blah, blah, blah. So again, you must understand the subjectivity of it, right? So there is no one fragrance that is going to work 100% of the time, right? I'm very tempted to make a quote from a popular movie, but I'll refrain.
60% of the time, it works every time.
That's the first thing you must understand. Now, the second thing you must understand is that this is an accessory. Fragrance is not an end-all be-all. It is not a means to an end. It's an accessory. And a lot of times you want to make sure that you are accessorizing accordingly. It's one thing to smell really good, right? But in addition to smelling really good, it's not just, you know, like they did hundreds of years ago in France where, you know, you didn't have to worry about bathing or you couldn't bathe, and so you just mask the smell with perfume. You have to practice good hygiene. So I think that's first and foremost, and that's absolutely paramount. You have to have good hygiene. So the first important thing that you must do is just make sure you are showered, make sure that you're putting on fresh, clean clothing. And then of course, keep in mind, the fragrance is an accessory. So that should always, you know, be of top priority to you. So make sure you have really good hygiene. And of course, make sure that you are bubbly and you're outgoing and you are gregarious. Now, this is easier said than done, because this is I don't want to call it a problem per se, but this is an issue that I personally face as well, because despite the fact that I'm getting in front of this camera and I'm talking to a lot of people, is I'm highly introverted. According to the Myers-Briggs personality assessment, I am classified as an INFJ. So I love keeping to myself. I love nothing more than when people cancel plans on me. I feel so bad saying it, but I love staying home and, you know, just getting work done. And, you know, actually I like doing the more introverted side of extroverted activities. So instead of talking to somebody on the phone, that's my biggest fear. If you want to make me happy, don't call me. Text me, and please don't be mad if I reply to you the next day. I like staying home, right? I like replying to comments from home. I like taking my time with responses, and unless it's an emergency, then, you know, if you call me and I pick up and it's an emergency, I'm really glad you called. But, you know, try to put yourself out there a little bit more. It's hard for me. It's really hard. Sometimes people will want to compliment you, but they're also overthinking it. And they're thinking to themselves, you know what? Is this person going to receive the compliment well? Are they going to think that I'm flirting with them? Are they going to think that I'm coming on to them? So a lot of times people will abstain from complimenting you just because they don't want to give across the quote unquote wrong impression. Now, of course, you know, if you're bubbly and you show them that you have a benign and just a very easygoing personality, an innocuous personality. You're not there to cause harm or anything. You're a friendly person from start to finish. That might make people feel more compelled to compliment you. So again, it is also going to be based on the pre-existing relationship that you have with that person. So if we're talking about a coworker or a colleague with whom you cross paths multiple times a day, and you've been working with them for X amount of years, okay, if you already have that relationship with that person, there's a very strong chance that they're going to feel comfortable complimenting you. If it's a total stranger, I mean, you must have just applied that fragrance and they must be totally in love with the way that it smells in order for them, and they must be extroverted and gregarious themselves in order to feel confident and comfortable enough to compliment you. So just know that even if you don't get a compliment, that doesn't mean that you don't smell good. It just means that maybe the other person is of a more shy or timid nature, that they don't necessarily feel confident enough to talk to a stranger. Okay? So the pre-existing relationship that you have with the person who compliments you is also going to be very, very important. And it is incontrovertibly a factor and a variable that must be taken into consideration. The other way to get compliments is to make sure you're wearing enough. I can't tell you how many times I've come across somebody who's wearing a fragrance and they know I'm into fragrances and they're like, "Oh, what do you think of what I'm wearing?" And then I smell them and I'm like, "I can't smell anything on you." It's like, "Oh, well, I did one spray 6 a.m. this morning." It's like, "Okay, well, it's 1 p.m. now. You expect me to smell the one spray you did on your chest under 2 layers of clothing of an eau de cologne perfume? Of course not." You want to make sure you're spraying enough, right? I'm not saying you got to over apply and do 50 sprays. Certainly not what I'm suggesting, but just make sure that you're spraying enough. And a lot of times that comes on the heels of the familiarization with the particular fragrance that you're wearing, right? So you want to make sure that if you are wearing an eau de toilette, something that's been reformulated, something that is predominantly top and mid heavy, yes, you might actually require spraying that fragrance again right around lunchtime. Versus if you're wearing something that's very base heavy, extrait de parfum, you can afford to do just a few sprays. You don't necessarily need to reapply. And if it is a type of DNA that the people around you are going to enjoy, there is going to be that likelihood, hopefully, of them complimenting you. So again, it does require a bit of familiarization with the fragrance that you're wearing. And that includes the concentration, the olfactive profile, so on and so forth. So again, at the end of the day, there are so many things that must be taken into consideration. Are you dressed appropriately, right? So sometimes if we're just running errands and we have a baggy t-shirt on, which I do from time to time as well, and sweatpants, baggy t-shirt, and we're just running errands, maybe we might not get a compliment. But again, if you are dressed to the point where it looks like you might receive a compliment on something other than your fragrance as well, you might get 2 birds killed with 1 stone, right? So if you're wearing a really nice suit, or if you have a really nice haircut, or if you are, social enough where people feel compelled to compliment you on some other aspect of your physical appearance, then in addition to that compliment, you might also hear them say something like, "Oh, and by the way, you smell really good too." That's happened to me before, right? So if you have something like maybe a piece of jewelry that's a conversation piece, I've had somebody look at my ring and they'll ask me like, "Oh, is that so-and-so brand?" And I'll say, "Yes," I'll confirm that it is. It's like, "Oh, I really love their brand and they have really nice fragrances. I notice you smell really nice too." So sometimes that compliment will come on the heel of another compliment. So just a lot of different things to keep in mind. But as I always say in these types of informative videos, I want this video to serve as a forum. So please drop your comment down below. Are there any tips and tricks that you have utilized to get more compliments from your fragrances? So if there's something that you do that works for you, please don't gatekeep, right? Share it with us. I love reading these comments and I love interacting with you all. And once again, I started the video off with this disclaimer. Some of us are not about the compliments. Some of us prefer to be left alone. If you're like me, you're highly introverted. But again, this is for those who are seeking to get more compliments with their fragrances. Be social, try to have a bit of confidence. Make sure you're well groomed. Make sure you recently took a shower. Make sure you're dressed well and dressed for the occasion. Make sure you're not under applying. Make sure you're wearing a fragrance that has a compliment getting DNA. If you search top 10 most complimented fragrances, you're going to find thousands of videos on this platform. So Anyway, I hope this video was helpful. Drop your comment down below. If it was helpful, hit subscribe, hit the bell, give it a thumbs up. Thanks again for watching. I love you all. We'll see you tomorrow with a new episode. Bye.